and Forensics Association, and a lawyer by profession. But just as it is, the tech bug hit me, and I got fascinated with a lot of technology, and we thank God for that. So those who will be presenting today, we have Felix Ngugi, who is an ICT expert and a member of Kenya CyberSecurity and Forensics. Then the other one who will also be presenting, we'll be having Samuel Munyuny. Samuel happens to be an expert, actually a child practitioner, a child rights activist, call it, and he's so much fascinated with children issues to an extent. He's a practitioner in that field and an expert. You'll be hearing much when he speaks. Samuel, you can say hi.
Hello, good evening.
But meanwhile, you can also mute your video, Samuel. Then we'll also have another presenter that is from UNICEF, a children officer by the name Faith Manyala, and you'll be hearing what really UNICEF is doing concerning the issue of children development during this COVID-19 period. And on the same note, you'll also be hearing from the legal front, that is from the judge herself, that is Justice Mumbi Madeka, who will also be presenting on the issue of the legal consequence protection that is available for the children online. Judge, are you online? You can say hi. Thank you, Judge. Now, without wasting much time, I'd want us to move straight away to the first panelist, who will take 5 minutes, and that is Felix Ngugi. Felix?
Hello.
Yes, now we can hear you.
Now it's much better.
It's much better now. Proceed, please.
All right. So, okay. So, my topic today will be mostly children and parents, and we are going to be tackling these issues about what is currently trending in the cybersecurity space, as well as ensuring that you as a parent or you as a guardian, you are able to notice or get to have a grasp of the online trend and how you can be able to protect the youth and the children from becoming victims of online fraud and issues that are concerned with the online space. So allow me to, I hope, Mr. Chairman, you have received my presentation already. So allow me to start with a quotation that I really find very useful, especially when we are doing trainings, especially concerning the children online, that children are the most valuable resources and its best hope for the future. So what that means, and this quote was said by J.F. Kennedy, and he mentioned this when he was president, and he meant by virtue of saying these words, it meant that every person has a role or responsibility to protect the children or protect the younger generation, because they form the bigger part of who we will be, of who the humanity will be becoming in future. But now we are living in the 21st century, where everything is interconnected because of the internet, and we are now referring to the world as a global village, because today it's not like the ancient days where you had to light fire so that you can communicate. Everyone right now is a WhatsApp call away or a WhatsApp text away, and you can be able to communicate with them. And so there are a couple of risks that are there on the online space, and I'm not just talking about the risk, but there is both positive and negative side of the internet, and everyone needs to be aware of the both sides, because what we've noticed that mostly people are using the internet negatively rather than positively, and so there are risks that are concerned. There are risks that come with online spaces. For example, harassed using electronic devices, child pornography, where you see people just doing explicit things on the internet. Things like internet addiction, online grooming, where you find people becoming terrorists because of how they have what they have been told online. That is basically online grooming. And then we have things like sexting and solicitation of nudes. And this one is very common among youth in the younger generation, and not just them, but you'll be surprised even the older generations also do the same. Sexting is that art of sending explicit text messages from one to another just to arouse a person's excitement, sexual excitement. And then we have things like cyber stalking, where someone online presence is being trolled or being followed by people that they don't know. And today's age, we come to realize that people have a different concern from what is deemed to be a concern for the older generations. Because nowadays, people are more concerned about what people online are saying about them. So if today I told a younger person that you are fat, you are a jerk, or you are anything bad on the online space, they will take that and they will use they will take that personally, and it will affect them both emotionally, physically, and mentally. And these are some of the concerns that we have really found to be affecting most of the younger generation nowadays, because what people perceive about them online is really affecting even their offline life. And just to take you to some notable cases of some of the issues that are just highlighted up there. We have cases like, for example, on September 2019, that's last year, we all had the case about the consolata boy who went online to abuse a friend, just because this friend normally he used to the friend used to call this boy some weird terms, and this boy took to Instagram to do a video, and he talked bad and using a language that really was detrimental, and people well, they normally call Kenyans of Twitter, they picked up this conversation and everyone was hitting back on this boy because, like, for example, I'll pick an example where they fall. So you can imagine that this boy, at the age of, let's say, 12 years old, he will be seeing this video when, or not this video, yes, the video that's one and plus also this blog. Yes, sorry.
You have 1 minute, 1 minute, 1 minute.
Okay, so the detrimental causes of this boy being just online, and what the challenges that he'll have in future. Another thing, notable thing, is things like the Utawezana challenge, where the lady who started that became bullied because people had a different opinion about her, but at first, which that was not the case. Notable figures like Linda Nyangweso, who are also bullied. Hashtags like Ifikia Wazazi, and we've been seeing a lot of socialism, where socialites, people get to emulate what socialites are actually doing online. And I think the most notable case about children and what has really hit home is about this news that was aired a month ago about a girl who met a friend on Facebook, and they ended up meeting up. So this girl used to stay in Kisumu, but the boy was in Bungoma. So the girl went from Kisumu all the way to Bungoma to meet this boy. And once they met, the boy did whatever he wanted with him, and then kicked away the girl. So at the end of it all, this girl was alone out there, and because she was away and she did not have money, she was left by 3 more. So it's very prudent for people to understand about the online risk. And I think we can talk more as we continue. Thank you.
Thank you, Felix, for that interesting bit about the children and all that. We will still come back to you. But at the moment, we want to hear from Faith. Faith, the online space, it's really affecting the children right now. What would you comment? How does it affect the children online development and all that? Yes, Faith?
Well, good evening, everyone. I appreciate the very good introduction Felix has made.
You can share your screen.
Okay. Yeah, I was mentioning I appreciate the introduction Felix has made, it's really shed light into really what the children are facing online. And the introduction about the risks are really what is happening even currently. But it's important for us just to highlight what Felix has said. It's not like the internet is really bad, but there are those positives. And even for the COVID period, we have seen how children have benefited from continued online classes, though the unfortunate bit with that is that it has presented a lot of iniquities, because unfortunately it's only children who, or rather children from families who have access to internet or stable data connection who are able to connect at this point. So it has just brought about the whole iniquity we have across the country. And even as we debate with the whole agenda on children returning to school next year, yes, there are benefits we can see about the safety of children, the health of children, but children are still continuing to access education online. What about those children in the rural areas who cannot access education? We can see there's the whole issue around the internet balloons being launched in certain areas. But how are we going to ensure such benefit children across the country? So I would say, in as much as children are benefiting from education during this period of COVID, there's still that evident inequality. But besides that, we have the anti-human trafficking and child protection unit. They have been receiving referrals from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. And you can see there's still a lot of content, child sexual abuse material being shared online. It's not only material that is being shared by the social media sites, but we have seen even locally, a number of us have seen the content being shared either by children or being circulated in our social media sites. So one of the major risks is the child sexual abuse material being shared around. And the unfortunate bit is also children are involved in the production and distribution of such sexual abuse material. So the challenge is, okay, parents are now having to learn about these new technologies, how to guide children. No one was prepared for this moment. So few people have the knowledge and skills to guide their children appropriately on how to keep themselves safe within the internet space. And without the teachers, without the parents being aware of how to guide the children, the unfortunate bit is the more children continue staying home because of COVID, we'll continue seeing dangerous trends going around. And it's upon us as stakeholders now to step up and find ways of how to reach out to parents, to reach out to teachers. When we started with the whole online platform, we saw the issues around Zoom bombing. Few people knew how to address these issues. Teachers were shocked. How do you go about telling the children this is what is happening, this is a risk, this is how we can address, this is something you need to expect, and this is how you'll respond to such cases. So we need also as stakeholders to step up. As we continue using these sites, as we continue appreciating technology, as we continue seeing how innovation and all these benefits of the internet are unfolding, then we also need to step up and ensure that we have more of these sessions, not only within the professional group, but how do we reach also the parents? How do we reach teachers? Because teachers are now going to engage children more within the online platforms. But how do we prepare them to also be aware on how to keep the children safe online? So for now, I'll leave the discussion there and let it be more open as we continue with the other presentations. Thank you.
Thank you, Faith. Thank you for sharing light on really what is happening and on child development and all that. Now that you've mentioned the issue of child development, how all this is affecting our children, I would want to hear from Samuel. Samuel, who happens to be child rights practitioner. Samuel, please tell us, what are the key really considerations that can make child online, to be a success, both guardians and children. Yes, Samuel.
Thank you, Keniz, and my co-presenters. I think more than ever before, COVID has pushed us to the year, I would say, 2050. And we've got to really appreciate that online environment will be here to stay for a while. So allow me to share this presentation. I hope it's visible correctly on your screen. But even as I open it, the emphasis really is that usually we ask ourselves, where do children spend their time? Children will usually be either in school or at home or in a playground. And so it was very easy to sort of be able to tell your child, when you're here, it's take care of this, because it's a physical space. But that has been transformed with the coming of an online community, where then it's a whole village that has been opened up, and you're no longer limited to just the neighborhood you know, the people you know, and the protection measures, therefore, are definitely going to be very different from what we've always known. And so it becomes necessary that we have to change the way we think about our spaces. There's a slide I put there. Usually you want to say, don't go, don't go. I think that is the most natural instinct if you really don't know something. And unfortunately for most parents, we left out, especially social media, for a long time and felt that was not something for an adult or an older person who never grew in that age to think about. But considering that that is the space now that the children are engaging in, I think more and more adults have to be able to engage in. And as my previous presenters have emphasized, that we cannot look at social media or online media for that matter only from a protective point and telling people don't go, don't go. But we've got to look at it as that is what is now a platform for providing education. It is a socialization platform. Like Felix said, it matters a lot how a child is considered, and some of them are even buying friends on Facebook, for example, just to appear popular. The jobs, they're going to be there for a long time. They've already been there in the last 10, 20 years. In question of equality, so if you have a disability, then you have greater access to services like schooling or even healthcare. You can get a medic doing a surgical operation with support from telemedicine. So these things are really supposed to be enablers, and we've got to look at online media from a point of how do we encourage that. Faith has touched on some of the risks that are definitely there, and we've got to think about them. Bullying, the risk of personal identifying information going out, and like the child Felix made reference to, 20 years from now, that video will still be online. How does it affect him when he goes looking for a job? So these are things that children must be made to be aware of. The risk of radicalization that also comes with that platform. We know of girls who left even Kenya and went to Syria and other places to be wives, so to say, to the gang leaders there. And this is part of being able to engage on the online platform. So what does this then mean when you talk about one, protection? So I'll emphasize protection and then talk a bit on the other bit of how do they tap into the benefit. So from a protection point, child online protection is not very different from the standard way we talk about protection. You've got to look at who is within the protection cycles. One is the child, the caregiver, the local community, the government, the international community. And it simply means we've got to ask ourselves, is the child able to take the initiative to know what is the boundary between what is good and what is risky behavior while online? And the same thing then for the caregivers or the parents to be able to do that. So I'll come back to that as I talk about a rights-based approach. Now, overall then, going straight to the question that Keniz has asked me, what will be the consideration for a successful child online engagement, let me call that, really beyond protection? I think one, it's got to be research and evidence informed. A lot of times we react and say, I believe Magoha perhaps has a point, but where is the evidence? Where is the data that shows that the more children go online and perhaps watch pornography, the more they're engaging in sexual activity. There have been discussions around policy. What is the appropriate age for a child to begin using an online media? And this is beyond just logging into internet, including TV. So there are countries that have said up to age 8, don't expose your child to online media because of research that has shown brain development is related to that, and social relationships are affected by that. So this is equally important that we have clear evidence-informed policy and legislation that will help us then give an appropriate direction. And I think this goes even into what we're saying now. Can we allow children to continue doing their schooling online and forget about fixing people to maybe having to open in January? How will that have changed, you know? Then the question of the criminal justice system is very, very important. I think it's an equalizer. That is why we have 3 arms of government, with the judiciary being a key one. And so if the justice system is not responsive, that it can help protect, promote, you know, also access to children's rights, because there's also a rights component that children have in accessing information online. The industry players, the ISP providers, you know, there should be a role around statutory reporting. If you are noticing that your site or your, you know, there's more access to illegitimate materials, then is there a statutory requirement to report or to delete certain materials? You've seen the conversation between Facebook and the global giants in advertisement. What was their role in preventing certain things like racism? So these are things that then we've got to make clear in terms of policy directives and give models on what works. Social systems that then are supportive, you know, making it normal now. And I also want to think it's time the government considered things like putting masks. Should not be something that maybe only the Safaricom and Airtels of this world have to do at their cost. It should be as important as doing a road, because it's one of those things that helps us equalize. And lastly, as a rights-based approach, let me just emphasize this as my last slide. I don't know how much time I had, Keniz, but if it's 5 minutes like others, I guess my time is up. But in a rights-based approach, okay. Thank you. This will actually form the bulk of my suggestion. Now, usually from how we deliver services, traditionally we've done it from what we call a needs-based approach. You know, we say, oh, the children in Kibera cannot access internet, so a few of us who are good-hearted, feeling philanthropy sufficiently, as someone has said, will go out there and provide internet or buy a few computers. And then the question of sustainability comes and hits us. But in a rights-based approach, we have got to ask ourselves, does every child have a right to access internet? I will say yes, because it's no longer one of those things that you have as a good thing. It has become a tool for living. And therefore, we've got to ask ourselves, what proportion of our budget goes into enabling children to access internet? But every right has a responsibility. So whoever is talking about children's rights must be able to talk to them about their responsibility. How do they do their role in keeping away from unsafe or risky behaviors that are likely to affect their own? The other side of a rights-based approach is to also then ask ourselves, if parents can't afford access to internet, what can we do as a people to ensure that the cost of internet is subsidized through taxpayer approach, or that fiber optic and the internet balloons are made accessible, paid for as part of the infrastructure? Or if you go to the next level, if the police officer is not able to support a good system of investigation and prosecution through the ODPP, how can we ensure that that system works effectively, so that when I report that I'm already being used or abused through bullying online, then there's a quick response mechanism, and also how to support the victims. So all these things have to be looked at and map out all the various stakeholders as key. So if we forget anything else in these slides, I think this one slide will be very important. Let's look for the data that shows what is the right thing to do. Should we have given laptops to grade 1 children, or should we have given to grade 7s? I think those conversations require to be backed by evidence and ensure the justice system then supports anything that is done. Thank you. Over to you, Keniz.
Thank you, Samuel, for being incisive and to the point. And I love the area of key considerations that should really be put in place. And now that you mentioned that, and you even mentioned the issue of policies and all that, now over to Justice Mumbi Madeka from High Court of Nakuru. And if you know Justice Madeka, she's been very really in the front line on children matters. Judge, over to you. Do you want to hear the legal protection that is available for the children online? Over to you.
Yes. Okay, sawa. Then thank you very much, and I must apologize for that delay. I think something to do with technology. Again, it is a sign that we are still getting used to these things. But I was just saying that both Sam and Faith and Felix set the ground very well for me. And all the examples that Felix gave are very live to the things that happen with our children. Right now, the issue I'm supposed to talk about is just what is the legal framework that is there for the protection of children. One of the things I think I noticed my colleagues saying is that it has reached a point where we do not have a clear, our children are not able to draw a line between virtual reality and reality, the reality we live in. But the law grounds, grounds everyone when it comes to things like those. So we have our constitution. If you recall, we have an article in the constitution that talks about the children themselves and talks about the protection of children from all abuse. From everything I've heard, we have there's a lot of that coming out from the examples given that that is happening to children online, but we have that, and it's parents actually who have the biggest responsibility. The state has its own role, of course, in putting in the machinery and the structures, but if you look at our legal framework, parents bear a big burden. Because one, in that Article 53, you'll see that though children have a right to that, to protection against abuse, but the parents have the duty to actually take care of that. When we come to our Children's Act, it's the same thing. You find that the responsibility is actually there for the parents. The law clearly sets out those duties for the parents by defining what parental responsibility is. And it includes, it is interesting, we have to actually legislate this. It includes guidance, both moral, religious, social, all those things that we are talking about. So you find there is that duty and also a penal part to it, so that if a parent neglects their duty and the child is exposed to that through their neglect, again, there's a penalty to that. So that as parents, we are given that duty, and because the state is supposed to regulate that, we are put in a situation where if we fail in that duty, then there's actually a penalty to that. But the other thing is, of course, the fact that we have the Sexual Offences Act and the Counter Trafficking in Persons Act. I think Faith talked about that for a while, but we have a very elaborate law that provides protections and penalties for people who might want to do these things online. Just to give you an example, on sexual exploitation, for example, we have very clear provisions on what that is when it comes to online abuse. It includes displaying of materials, it includes printing and publishing material that might, induce or promote any kind of sexual abuse, or even induce a child to commit any of those offenses, or be involved in issues of indecency and any sexual offenses. So we have a very good framework of law that actually provides those protections and deals with the people who might be found guilty of such offenses. Even when you talk about child prostitution, it's not just the one that you think about of maybe on the streets. It can be done online, and we have a law that defines what those offenses are and how these people can be charged and dealt with by the law. Then when you talk about child pornography, issues of obscenity, audiovisual images, the law also has prohibits such things and provides penalties for persons who might get involved in such activities with children. Then we have not just the negative bit, as Faith was saying, we also have laws that are positive. For example, when you talk about when these offenses are committed and the evidence is available, electronic evidence, our law has evolved to the point that electronic evidence can be admitted in court, where, say, for example, certain things have been done online, both digital and electronic evidence can be availed to support a case where, say, a child has been exposed or abused, and online, that evidence can be admitted in court according to our Evidence Act, including photographs that might have been taken. That is evidence that can be brought to court to support a case about against a person who has abused a child. We also have in our penal code laws, the law that that prohibits people from publishing any material online that could be, cause alarm or could be insulting or threatening or inciting, and that is protective, also that in case children come across that kind of material. And then, of course, the issue of education has been spoken about, that children can access education online. But again, that limitation, I think I don't want to repeat that because that was discussed. But however, at the end of it all, when you look at all those laws, and especially the Children's Act, what comes out is that this must be looked at by the whole society, the whole community. Parents alone can't do it. So the community, the parents, the society, the state, we all have a duty. We are all duty bearers. I like what some put out there. All these people are bound by the law to actually provide the protection that is required, because each of us has a duty within the law, if we look at it, where if we don't do our part, then we are held responsible by one legislation or the other. I cannot go into a lot of details because I expect to maybe answer some questions, but I want to just finish by saying that the person who needs this information is the child. I don't know how well we can put this. The child needs to know that, I don't know how we can do this, and this I think will go back to Ken and the cyber people, those specialists. How do we get children to actually understand this difference, the difference between the reality as we see it, the soil we touch and the things, and the other reality that is virtual, because it's living with us. Because that is where I think the big problem is, being able to draw that line and be able to understand that both realities are here with us, but they need to see that there's a difference in the way we interact in both. Some talked about the notice that says, don't enter this place. But one of the things you know about children, you tell them not to do something, they'll do it. So how do we allow them to enter in such a way that they don't meet all these bad people that we are talking about? They don't get abused, they don't get bullied, they don't get, and if they find that, they're able to report that and we are able to deal with it. How do we do that? Because the law will only come in after the fact. But if we are going to help children, I think we have to find a way, a recommendation somewhere on how to make them so much aware, so conscious of the fact that these things are there, but though they are good for them, there's a certain limit. So I'm hoping that at the end of this, we'll get somewhere where we can get a way forward, where we don't wait for the law to take its course, but we have a preventive way of dealing with it, so that we protect the children from the harm that comes to them if
Yeah, 2 minutes.
This. What did you say, Ken? I didn't hear you.
What did you 2 minutes?
Oh, it was time. Okay. Well, I think I'll just come to a conclusion by just simply saying that although we talk about, I had my brother talk about the protective measures being different. I think for children, from the way I'm seeing and from what I've heard, it's like for them it's the same thing. They can get in and out of those, both the reality, the virtual one, and the real one, in and out at whatever time they want to. And that's why, in my view, we have to come up with a way. I'm not a specialist in cyber things, but in terms of what is happening, we need to find a way of getting this information to children so that they themselves can protect also themselves. I want to stop there and wait for, maybe there'll be questions, and leave it for the other members. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Judge. And I've loved the part where you're asking, how do we know? How do you get the children to understand between the two realities? That you have the online, you have the physical bit and all that. To that extent, it reminds me of what my mother used to say. These children are difficult. No, that's a direct translation. But now the problem is, right now we have them for the next 6 or 5 months. And people know the bit they eat. And you see, these children, they have the flair. They have the affinity with the technology. What your child can do with your phone, give the child that phone for 2 hours, you'll be surprised. Some of the things you never even thought of. Now, how do we help them? So that's a nice one. And for that reason, I go back to Felix. Felix, you are to give us some bit of what are the key what are the best cyber hygiene and best practices that both the parents and guardians can know for them to stay online. Felix.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you. Can even share your screen.
Yes. All right. So what I'm saying, I like what Justice Matheka said, that sometimes the law cannot really litigate on what parents need to do, because it's a responsibility for the parents to know what they are supposed to be doing. And at this point, all right, let me just do that as I talk. So in as much as we want to speak about what we need to do and some of the measures, we need to come to a realization that what we are experiencing right now is because, number one, our society doesn't care about traditions, doesn't care about integrity, it doesn't care about the morals, and that doesn't care about the younger generation. Because as long as it is making them money, as long as it is making people famous and gaining people followers, then that is what they will keep on doing each and every other time. And I think that has been seen over and over again. And over the engagements that we've been having, we've asked people, that our children or the younger generation, that if today you are listening, there is a popular kind of music called Gengeton. So would you let your child, you as a young person, listen to music like Gengeton? And they say no. And we ask them why, and they tell us that the kind of language that is used on those music does not really reflect what the society is all about. And if a younger person can be able to tell you like that, and you still find them doing the same, it means that we are losing a part of our tradition and social cultural norms. And what now we need to do as for now is, number one, the parents. The parents need to be the parents really need to take up the task of nurturing their children in terms of giving them the positive or the right sides of the internet. Because in as much as you want to have a positive impact within your child, you must teach them how to use the internet positively. There are so many positive things about the internet that a child can learn from that. So one, make sure as a parent you have contact or make sure that you as a parent, you are in contact with your child, and that your child is very free with you. Normally say that be your child's best friend, because that's the only way that that child can be able to articulate concerns to you. So parents, number one task is up to you. Number two, as a society, as a community, we also need to rise up against some of the social injustices that you are seeing. Again, back to the music I was referring to, Gengeton. If today we've seen Ezekiel Mutua going ahead and banning some of those music because of the kind of language that they're using. But then again, after they go ahead and ban this music, the uproar by Kenyans, the public itself, you find that it gives a lot of pressure to the government to retaliate or give an opposing judgment towards what Ezekiel Mutua had said. But if you look at it critically, Ezekiel Mutua saw something, and when I talk about Ezekiel Mutua, I'm talking about the whole institution of KFCB. They saw something that is detrimental to the younger generation. And if the government and the law then goes ahead and rebukes what they had said, then it means that, again, we are not caring about the social society that we are living in. And as long as these people are making money, they will continue doing that. And you can imagine some of these songs that I'm talking about, they normally use songs that are very attractive to the younger generation. So if that's where their catch is, then we need to rethink about what we are really doing about the industry itself. And number three, there was that case I referred to earlier about that child. There was a man who was caught having sex or soliciting a child because, and the man was around 40 years and the child was 13 years. And he recorded himself and then released this video to the online space. But then this year, earlier on last month, the DCI said that they do not have enough evidence to prosecute this man. And this man now might walk free because of lack of evidence. But to the child, that was actually detrimental to her. One, physical, mental, and emotional well-being, because at the end of it all, that video will live to be there. She's only 13 years old and her video is already out there. So back to the laws and what Justice Madeka said is we need to really put together laws that will confine, even without lack of even without enough evidence, as long as there's something that shows that that child actually went through an injustice like sexual exploitation, that person cannot walk freely or just go out there free. But now that is in terms of a social perspective, approaching it from a community perspective. But now from a technological perspective, you need now to put in things like antiviruses or probably kids monitoring softwares within the machines that the kids are using. And that one will ensure that what they are viewing, you as a parent or a guardian is able to view, to see or monitor what they are doing. But then again, it's important for, I think, at the bottom line, the person who needs to take the most responsibility for everything is the person responsible for that youth or child. The guardian and the parent and everyone around them, they need to make sure that that child is protected all the time.
Yes, Felix, you stopped, so I guess you are done. Huh?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Thank you, those who have listened. And now it's time we can move to questions. I can see there are a number of questions which are here. There are a number of questions which are here. Just a minute with my screen. I see a couple of questions that have been really brought forward. And to all the panelists, thank you for your time. On the same note, you also take the opportunity to welcome all the first timers, those who have joined us, Justice Wakiaga, and others who have joined the sessions. Please feel free to also contribute, and even to others who have joined for the first time. Now, there are a couple of questions which I see here. Number one, this one is directed to the judge. There's one to the judge, another to Samuel, another one to Faith. Let me begin with the judge.
Okay. I hope you can hear me.
Yes.
Yes, I've seen the question about whether I handled any case of online sexual abuse. The case I handled when I worked in Kibera was about this gentleman. Let me just call him that for the sake of respect, although he did a very bad thing. Was this man who, in one of the estates around Kibera law courts, was showing children pornographic material and then abusing them. And of course, somebody is asking whether there is a different in the process between these cases and the ones offline child sexual abuse. Well, when it comes to the evidence taking, of course, the evidence taking is the same. The only thing is that it's the production of that other evidence of what he was showing the children. But when it comes to the children giving evidence, it is the same thing because they talk about what they were shown and what was done to them. Okay, so the challenge here is, maybe they would not have thought it was something wrong if they were just shown those things. But someone found out that he was showing them those things and then what we are calling grooming, preparing them for what he wanted to do with them. And he actually did it. Some of them he showed them only, some of them he defiled them. The process of taking the evidence is the same. Let me just say that. But of course, the effect on the children is devastating. It's devastating. The good thing is that, as we say, the law is very, prohibits these things, and we were able to deal with the man properly and give him the appropriate sentence. This time, this case, the accused person was a man. So I hope I've answered the question about that. The other, I haven't seen another of the other forms of online abuse. The one that I did was that one about someone exposing children to pornographic material on his phone.
Thank you, Judge. Now, there's another question, but I'll come to it later. The other question is directed to Felix. Felix, yes. Yes,
I wanted to add something.
Please proceed.
Can I go ahead, please? Okay. I just wanted to mention that most times it is dangerous for us to look at online as a silo, and it's really important for us to look at online abuse as a bigger component of the violence against children component, because most of the times something might start online. For instance, online grooming. The whole preparation and gaining the trust begins online, but the actual abuse to a child happens offline. So you'll find most of the times, even when a case proceeds, they will charge it as a defilement case, and no one really looks back to what really happened initially before the abuse really happened. So at times it's really important for us to look at the online and offline dynamics, how the offense starts online and it ends up being committed actually offline. So it's really important for us, even as we make this discussion around online protection, we just remember at the back of our minds that this is a big a component of the bigger violence against children. So it's important to ensure that even as we look at solutions, we also look at how they are going to affect children in the offline space. Over. Thank you.
Thank you. Then to Felix. Felix, there's a question about, can you tell us about the dark web? How is this dark web related to issues we're discussing here? Felix?
All right. So the dark web, most of the people normally understand the surface web. So the internet is divided into three. There is normally the surface web, the deep web, and the dark web. So these three parts, the surface web is actually the smallest part, and that is where most of the people normally are. It's about 4% of what the internet is all about. But then there is the dark web and the deep web, where most of the illegal happenings happen, and anything that is not right is. So if you want to find child pornography, you'll not find it using the normal browsing tools like Google or Bing or that, but using now specialized tools like, let's say, Tor, you can be able to get access to the deep web and the dark web, where you can be able now to see these explicit things like child pornography, smuggling of drugs and weapons, and anything bad that you can find down there. So most of the time you'll find that in the dark web, that is where most of these criminals tend to hide. And once they get there, most of the time it's very hard for you, and especially this is where most of the challenge comes in for the law enforcement, but eventually it pays out, is that once you're in the dark web or the deep web, it's very hard for one to be traceable or for one to be noticed. So because what happens there is mostly legal, it's a different network from what we are normally used to. And once you get down there, you are more exposed to things that are not indexed. So you'll find like the websites down there are totally different from how you perceive most of the other websites on the surface web. So the deep web is a place actually we find some of the children or the youth playing around with, because we have chat rooms down there. We have on the deep web, on the dark web, we have chat rooms down there where now they get to discuss about different other things that they don't want their parents to find out. We have not just chat rooms, but also games or applications that do things that they are not being monitored, and it really gives a parent or even the law enforcement a very hard time in terms of trying to figure out what is happening within these two spaces. So if for example you find a child or a youth using things like the Tor browser, then I think it's for you as a guardian or a parent, you should be very keen on what is this child or young person doing with these, especially in eventualities that they are not being monitored, because that is a part where, well, everything that can go wrong will go wrong if necessity comes to be. But that is just one part of what is perceived to be the dark web, and it is important that you as a parent also know about it, so that if you find things to do with those now Tor websites and things to access that, you can have a keen eye on what they are doing online. Thank you. I hope I've answered the question.
Thank you, Felix. Thank you for the bit you told them. It's that bit that is not indexed. Things you cannot Google. There are some of those sites you cannot Google. Parents, you have guardians, you have just to up your games. There's no shortcut. These children are difficult, just as I told you. Now over to Samuel. Samuel, being a child rights practitioner, and you really travel over these issues. How is the collaboration at the international level on matters related to children issues online and all that? Samuel?
Thank you, Keniz. There's been quite a good effort to collaborate. I think one of my friends we work with from the police section is here.
Samuel, you can share your screen. You can unmute your video. We see you.
Okay. Great. I hope it's coming on. So there's been a lot of very good attempts. You've heard of ICMEC, perhaps. There's been international groups that are already trying to track, especially sexual exploitation, trafficking, and sharing of data at that level, so that groups like Facebook can be able then to share with Interpol and other groups to share data. I know Kenya has been one of those countries that have been commended through our the DCI, the Child Protection Wing, that has looked specifically at desk on online safety. And I will say there's been really a good attempt at translating, or rather having a platform where data is shared. Perhaps what I'm not sure about, I don't know if the Lawrence I see here is the Lawrence I know, they could add their voice to this, that the kind of data that we are receiving, whether there's capacity to analyze it and make trends. For example, in the last 2 years, we've implemented a project in Nairobi, Mombasa, Kisumu, and Nakuru counties. and we were trying to understand what are the trends as relates to certain behaviors that are risky. For example, who is likely to share their nude photos? Does it matter if they're poorer household or from a richer household? And so being able to dig into that mass data becomes a challenge that I think, I'm not sure whether we've been able to exploit that, but I think those are things that we need to address even before we talk about the global sharing of data, which is definitely going to be important because this is a global issue. But allow me to also add on to the voice of what others have said earlier on. This is not something you can police enough. You can never be able to do it outside. You know, they say your children will make certain decisions in life, whether you are there or not, whether you support it or not, because they have to leave the house and interact. And the same thing has to happen on the online. So like we're talking about the dark web, I think as a parent, I can never be able to be ahead of my child to know well enough on what are the risks in every stage. I actually don't know about the dark web. I recently realized my daughter now understands how to use Zoom better than me, you know, shortcut keys, and she's only 8 years old, and it's because they're using it in their classroom. So they're always going to be ahead of us. But if we empower our children to have the confidence, number one, because in these studies that we have conducted, we realize that for children, having an online space is so critical. It has become what, I don't know what was so important for you when you grew up. You know, maybe I'm trying to remember some of the jeans brands that we used to wear in the village. They will be so important for you that if you didn't have it, you will do anything to get it. So we realized 65% of children are having access to internet, and about 50% were actually having their own gadgets. And that did not change so much, whether they were from richer households or poorer households. So what it means is we've got to help children overcome peer pressure, because that's the same thing that makes them feel like I'll share my nude photo because my friends are doing it. But how do you do that? It will never be done in a school or by the police enforcing it. It will be done in households and people having conversation. Unfortunately, especially in the urban areas, very few households are having moments of talking together, or even practices like in the West that are known to enhance that, like eating together over dinner. It is not our cultural thing. A lot of us in this age group perhaps are not allowed to eat together with the older people when we grow up. So that's what we have. You go home and the father eats alone. But we need to have those spaces where children can talk to parents and be the first source of information on what is safe, what is unsafe. So really, there's a lot of work that not enough law can ever legislate, but households have to do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Samuel. The other question goes to Faith, being the children officer at UNICEF, and so what are the challenges that you people face in prosecuting these online related cases? Faith?
If I got your question right, you're asking about the challenges around prosecution.
Yes, you're prosecuting these online related cases.
If you allow me, I would let one of the investigators from the Anti-Human Trafficking and Child Protection Unit to actually speak to that, because that is what they do on a daily basis. I think I saw Lawrence within the forum, and if it's okay with you, I'll let him answer that, at least from a practitioner's point of view.
Okay, it's agreed. Lawrence, are you able to hear us, Lawrence?
And also, Ken, if you'll allow me, Ken, I also saw,
Okay.
I think I've seen Madam Grace Ndirango, if she's the one, she's also involved in this. She will, if she's the same one from police, if she's still here, I'm sure she can have something to say about prosecution of these cases, because they have been doing it. And there's I think that department in the DCI's office. I'm hoping she's the one, so that she can also be able to share. Thank you.
Oh yes, Grace. Grace, are you there? So I'd say Lawrence. Lawrence, can you have your 2 minutes? Just unmute your voice at the video. You see, 2 minutes, and then you also give Grace 2 minutes on the same.
Hello, everyone. Yes, I'm Detective Lawrence, of course. Actually, at the unit, we handle online matters related to children abuse. And maybe to add on what Felix just said, Tor network is not something very unique because it is just like a browser, an advanced browser of, it's advanced of Mozilla Firefox. So the only difference with this tool, this browser, is that it has got some protocol rules that the rules allow the person using the browser just to browse and send data with concealment that you can't see and trace the person and the data being sent. So it makes it very difficult even for the law enforcement officers to actually trace the evidence from the sender and also from to the gadget that has been used, because the Tor browser, which is the darknet, it does not allow even the server. The person using the browser can even use the data, and the data is very far away from him. So it is not that different from any other browser. It is only that
Lawrence has gone
identity. Hello?
You disappeared. 1 minute, please.
Okay, thank you. So the concealment brings a challenge of even tracing the network of the offenders because they use these tools. And the time when we get the reports, you know that there is no that database in Kenya that a member of the public can directly report the incident. The cases are reported through the platform, social platform like Facebook. Then Facebook through NECMEC, we get the report. So that time of getting the report is a challenge. There is also that data security law that was just signed into law. So not even ISPs, internet service providers, can give us data upon request in real time. We have to file, seek orders from court, and the process of getting orders to serve the ISPs takes time. So the time does not allow us to actually act on these cases promptly. Thank you.
Thank you, Lawrence. Grace, if you are hearing us, Grace, you can have your 2 minutes also to share light on the same.
Hello, am I heard?
Yeah, unmute your video. Okay, please proceed.
Hello, am I heard?
Yes, we hear you, Grace. Please proceed.
Yes. My name is Grace Dirango. I'm a DCI officer. Yes, the DCI anti-human trafficking and child protection is there, and we receive cases of online child abuse. We get the intelligence from NECMEC, and we have several cases that we have arrested perpetrators, and the cases are before the court. But the challenge comes, especially here in Kenya, is that when we arrest those perpetrators, of course, we are assisted by the service providers like Safaricom and Airtel to track wherever they are. But when we get those gadgets that they have been using, some of them are not compatible with our forensic kits that are able to give us that evidence. Because you realize in Kenya, we have to get the evidence. Apart from the intelligence that was sent to us by NECMEC, we have to get the person and get that gadget and able to get the evidence through from the forensic laboratory. So, but we have allowed 10, 15 cases that are before the court, and we are waiting to see how they will go after we present the evidence before the court. But we believe that we have good evidence, because before we charge people, we share the evidence with the Department of the ODPP's office, and they authorize, or they concur with us that we have evidence. So now we are waiting after we produce the evidence before the court to see how it goes. Otherwise, cases of child online abuse in Kenya is massive. It's massive. Even the personnel that we have in that unit who are trained, like Lawrence and others, they are not very many. They are like 4 officers who are really specialized, but they are assisted by the other officers to deal with those cases. Yeah, thank you.
Oh, now we've heard it from the horse's mouth, issues about telling in prosecution. But on the same note, Justice Mazeka, there is a question directed to you on the same. What are the challenges that courts face as they prosecute online related kids matters?
Thank you very much, Ken. I think Grace has captured the biggest challenge. You know, when a case is brought to court, and in criminal cases, as you may be aware, the proof of a case is beyond a reasonable doubt. So gathering this evidence, and you've heard it from the investigators themselves, they get a report, maybe through Facebook or whatever other means, and they have to gather that evidence and bring it to court. That is having that evidence brought to court. Of course, there are the usual other challenges we have with the normal cases, but for online sexual abuse or any other abuse, I think the biggest challenge for them is gathering the evidence and presenting it to court. Of course, the other thing is getting the witnesses to testify. I think one of the challenges that we have, and you heard it from Faith also, is when we are not able to, how do I put it? When we are not able to line up, like to how do I say now, to join up together the fact that here is a defilement, but maybe it started with online grooming. Are we together? So that we find that there may be a case of defilement, but that bit of the online thing that happened before is not revealed because it did not come out during investigations. Or maybe, as maybe Grace and Lawrence have said, it's possible that that bit might not be available, but the defilement part took place. So if you're getting me, and I think I want to tie this up with what Sam was saying about research and those things, us getting the actual data for us to actually get to know what are the actual challenges. But for now, in my little experience with those cases, just that investigation and getting the actual evidence to court. The other thing is we have the issue of access to justice. I saw a question about technology, access to justice. I think it's only recently that we had those amendments and some of these laws being put in place to deal with all these online things, and especially also admitting electronic evidence. The process itself, if you read the law itself, it's also very technical. How do you admit this evidence in court? You know, what needs to be done? I think they can tell you the challenges they have in getting that to actually have it admitted as evidence in court. So we have all that, and people preserving evidence also. You've heard from Lawrence looking for it from where it is to bring it. It's a problem. So the usual challenges that we have with any other, say, sexual exploitation case, whether virtual or non-virtual, we have the same challenges. These people who are affected need to be counseling. These people who are, the children who are offended need psychosocial support. When this is discovered, during the trial, after the trial, so that they are able to also understand what was done to them and be able to heal from that, and also to be strengthened so that when it happens again, they know what to do. So I think it's a whole, I would say it's a whole new thing that we are dealing with, and both the people who are being affected, the personnel who are needed, including the courts, the police, the investigators, everybody else, we are all in this together, trying to find the the best way to deal with this. For all of us, I think it is not something we are used to doing. So we have some time to go. We have some steps to take so that we are able to actually deal with these things properly.
Judge, before I let you go, can you just tell us please tell us what gaps can technology fill in this area of child online protection in Kenya, in your view? Now that you have beaten our challenges, in your view, what gaps do you think technology?
I can only speak from the point of view of access to justice for the people who are affected, because the rest of it, I think Felix spoke about it, the technological part of it. But when it comes to access to justice for these persons, is being able to access, because for the courts, it's after the fact. So now we are trying to get this person to get justice. So if this person is, say, like the cases that, like maybe Grace has mentioned, you find that somebody committed an offense here and went somewhere else, or they are doing it when they are somewhere else, and they do investigations and find out they are there. Are we able to get the evidence of this child who was affected from wherever they are? During this COVID period, for example, people are not able to come to court. Okay, so how do we get this child or this person who has been abused online, and the case has been investigated, and we want them to testify, and they are somewhere in Ukambani, so to speak, like in Makueni, and we are here. They have gone home, they were in Nakuru, and they are here, and we need to get their evidence. That, if we can get technology to respond to the issues of access to justice, I think that would be a big step forward. So that, for example, if I'm sitting here in Nakuru and my witness is in Makueni, wherever they are, we can be able to get them to give their evidence from there. From what I have heard from Grace, you can actually, when we share that you have an American doing something here, he goes to America, he's arrested there, and our children can testify from here, and that person is convicted and imprisoned. But within our own country, it is very hard. Somebody still has to travel from wherever they are and to come to court. When, if you ask me, if it's an issue of access to justice for this person, maybe they would be comfortable to speak from where they are, and then the case would maybe take a shorter time, would not have all this. So having a one-stop place where these persons who are affected by this, their cases are investigated, everything is put together, and they are able to have their cases heard without all these other exposures that they might get. So technology will come in if it's responsive to the issues of access to justice. But the other bits about how to deal with the webs and stuff like that, I think that is for the experts. But as far as access to justice is concerned, it is where technology will be able to be responsive to the needs of that witness or that victim who needs to come to court, that officer who needs to investigate the case and bring the best evidence to court. That, in my view, would actually be able to, because if we get sufficient convictions and we see that people are actually tried properly and the cases are actually out there, people will know it is serious. That doing certain things we think are small things, it's actually a big offense, and you can be found, the evidence can be found against you, you can be convicted and sent to prison to serve for that offense. So I think for me, that is the way I would want to look at it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Judge, on the issue of access to justice. Now, Felix, we are talking about technology. Number one, in just 2 minutes, please answer this question. Is it possible to regulate the internet with innovations occurring every minute? And another question related to that, is it possible for the government to block access of harmful websites to parents and the general public, where parents and general public can forward such websites and all that? I hope you get the question. You have the questions there. Can you have your 2 minutes to answer that? We are winding up in 10 minutes.
Fine. Okay, so on the first questions about innovations, I think the innovations are really coming up, and we would not want to restrict any innovation that is being invented within the internet spaces. The problem with the technology and the internet is us, the people, because we talk about TikTok, we talk about all these other platforms. They were created for a good purpose, but then the people took them and they have restructured the use of those platforms to do the bad things. So if you restrict an innovation, or probably if you quarantine an innovation, then it means that you are killing someone else's dream. And you're also killing probably a million other people who would have used the same platform for good. So like, for example, imagine today if people were to use YouTube for good things, a lot of good people, we would have a lot of good people, but still we have those people within the society that use it negatively. So I would not say that we regulate internet innovations, because that one would kill a lot of ambitions for a lot of young people. But it would now go back to the morals, the traditions about the reservations for one being. It is up to you as an individual to be able to use the platforms and innovations positively and not to use them negatively. About now over to the second question about restrictions of different other sites that are promoting bad content. Again, well, I think we can have restrictions, yes, but with an age limit. Remember, some of the people who access these content, they're not supposed to be accessing it, and that is where we are bringing in the conditions of things like child internet addiction, because they are getting used to watching things that are not supposed to be watched by their age. But now, if we start bringing in the issue about restricting things like pornography, things like betting, and probably other things that we deem not necessary for young people, then again it kills the dreams of other people, adults who are actually feeding out of them. So like, for example, the betting industry. If you block the betting industry in Kenya, it means that you're killing a lot of jobs, a lot of innovations around the betting industry and all that. But if it's around pornography, let's have a cap across an age restrictions of people who can be able to have access to that. But that again will now trickle down to back to the parents and the guardians. Why are you letting your children, why are you letting your younger generation access these platforms? So restrictions, and I keep on thinking about quarantine. I think it's because of the period, but things to do with restrictions and making sure that censorships, I don't think they would really apply in the technological space, because it's about how we, the people, use the technology. It's not about how the technology was created to behave. So I would not really go for censorship and restrictions, but I would go back to the roots about what are we human beings supposed to be doing with it. Can we use it just for the positive and not for the negative? And if it is used for the negative, like, can we be able to avoid that also? So thank you. I think that will be my points.
Thank you so much. I'll now give every panelist just less than a minute each to give us their last words, and then I'll welcome Madam President, Registry Kamau, to give us a vote of thanks, and we'll have the session closed. It's a session that can take the whole day. But in the interest of time, and I can see people are tired, and it appears they've not taken their supper. Over to you. Let's give by Samuel. Samuel, your last words. You can do that in 10 seconds.
Thanks for organizing this, and good to see that it's coming from a collaboration between almost people who run private sector and the public sector. I think that has to be the spirit. And maybe the other thing we need to be careful about whenever we're having a conversation on children and online spaces, let's not only emphasize too much on the negatives. Like they say, what you focus on grows. So how can Kenya take advantage of the fact that we are very internet savvy young people, and also talk very loudly about the opportunities we are creating from a very positive end? And lastly, I must say that legislation is key, but there is a gap. There's a slide that I shared there. We did an analysis of legislation that exist, and most of them were not comprehensive enough, being sent or in court and prosecuted to even support a case execution. So I think we've got to work together. The Children's Bill, for example, 2019 is still pending. We need to work together as multi-sector and ensure it comes through, because it adds some of those needs to be.
Thank you, Samuel. Over to you, Faith. Faith?
I would also emphasize what Samuel has said about, let's consider heavily the positives of the internet, because once we appreciate the positives of the internet, we'll also be able to address with a sober mind the negatives of the internet. But besides that, under the leadership of the Department of Children's Services, a national plan of action on online child sexual exploitation is being developed. And I'm not so sure if, okay, COVID happened, and that limited the stakeholders' engagement process. But it will be really important to get the insights from the people who have participated in this webinar, because it's a national plan of action. So what we have to contribute to the plan is really key when it comes to ensuring we have the right policy in place to ensure protection of children from the harms of the internet, but ensuring they also benefit from the gains of the internet. So I will talk to the in-charge person within the DCS to ensure that it's also circulated within this group to get the input to enrich the plan of action. Thank you.
Thank you, Faith. I'll move straight away to Justice Madeka. Your parting shots.
Thank you very much, Ken, for this opportunity to have this discussion. I appreciate the fact that we are from all walks of life, those of people who've been here, and even among the panelists, the diversity of views. I think that is what is needed. I cannot overemphasize what Sam and Faith have said about us looking at what is good from the internet. I think I'll still stick to my view that we need to empower our children so that they know, so that they can actually enter this world of the internet, knowing what is good for them and what is not good for them, because as I'm aware, the law is never the complete answer to some of these things. Sometimes the law comes when it is late, when everything has gone wrong, and sometimes it cannot correct the harm that has been done. So if we can find a way, and I'm happy to hear from Faith that there's something coming, because I was looking for a policy, national policy on these things, and as Sam said, there's a gap. We need, as a nation, to look into this so that we come up with a way to empower our children to be able to navigate the internet and be able to avoid the harm that comes with it. Thank you so much, and God bless you, everyone.
Thank you. Now I turn this to Madam President, Lady Justice Kamau. Over to you. Can you give us some parting shots? After 2 minutes.
Thank you very, very much, everyone, for such elucidating presentations to the presenters. I can see it's now going to 2040, and everybody must be very, very tired. I do not want to take longer time than what we have done at this particular point. I don't know whether people can hear me, because I can see as if there's poor network connection. Keniz, can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm hearing you, though you are breaking, but proceed, please.
Right. Thank you very much. So at this juncture, I was saying that I wish to thank all the participants for staying until so late. It is now 2040. But just to say thank you to the ones who have remained until now. Quite a number of people have left. And it's also been a very, very difficult day because many people have had other webinars as well. So I want to thank the panelists. This Justice Mumbwa Matheka, Samuel Munyuwin, Felix Ngugi Waime, Faith Manyala. I also want to thank the participants who have come from the enforcement and investigation officers, judges and magistrates, guardians, the civil society. And we can also not forget the technical support, Mr. Wahome from KCSFA and Dan Sepu from KMJA. Thank you so much, Keniz Agira, the chair of KCSFA, for having moderated the session very well. So thank you very much. I don't know whether you've all heard me. The internet connection sometimes has a problem, but to say thank you very much. And back to you, Keniz. Thank you.
At times, words cannot be enough to express all this. And without even repeating much what the Lady President has said, they say every journey begins with the first step. And this is the first steps you are making. But the most important thing which I must underscore right now, you, the parent, you, the guardian, take the lead role. You have no otherwise. The children are with us for the longest time, and if you just let them be, at times, it may reach a point where controlling them might be a different thing. But for now, may I just smile my thanks on behalf of Kenya CyberSecurity and Forensic Association. All you need to do, and in collaboration with Kenya Magistrate and Judges Association, we're just here to share and build our country the best way we can. Till next time, God bless you. Bye-bye.